The carpet is a dark blue, kind of scraggly thing that looks like it's been trod on by 1,000 feet. I walk in the room and sit down on the brown leather chair, and my partner sits on the IKEA pong chair. And across from us, this tiny woman in a voluminous beige dress takes her place on this ugly red plaid couch. And next to her on the floor is a crate with a tiny dog that's snoring. And yes, this means we're back in couples therapy. And this woman, she might be our 20th couples therapist, or maybe our 14th or our 25th. I mean, who's counting? We suck at couples therapy. And it's kind of lucky because we're about 28 years into our relationship and we're in this happy, in love place. And we're just here because we're not having sex. Any sex. For decades, my partner hates sex and finds it disgusting. And this woman in this huge tent dress that hides every part of her body, she is a sex therapist. It's already not going well. So she looks at us and she says, "So who wants to go first?" And I look at my partner, deep brown eyes and really beautiful skin. And my partner just looks so innocent, and I think, oh fuck. Because how it goes, and this is how it always goes, is we come to the therapist and my partner says nothing and looks like a little non-binary yeshiva boy who could never hurt anybody. And I try to outweight them in the saying nothing, and I'm getting angrier and angrier, and my fingers are tapping against my leg and my jaw is tensing, and inevitably I blurt out something like, "They hate sex and they keep saying it'll get better and it never does." And then like one of the 3,000 therapists we've seen gets this little click in their eye and like neon letters going over their forehead that says, "Oh yeah, we know you with the anger, you're the real problem." So to give my partner all credit, this time they say, "We have sexual problems." And I still get really pissed off because we have sexual problems. They have a sexual problem, and my sexual problem is that they have a sexual problem. So I'm still getting so pissed, and I can see the therapist notice it, and click, 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 I'm the problem. But then my partner says, "And couples therapy never helps because the therapist always takes my side." Well, there is a reason I've stuck around for 28 years. This person really loves me, and they always try. They're not very good at it, but they do always try. So this therapist, like the other therapist, actually blames me, not 100% of the time, more like 80, so it's an improvement, we stay. And, you know, fast forward a couple of years, and it's the first Trump presidency, and I moved to Canada to get away from him, but my partner and I miss each other so much, we're falling asleep with our laptops next to us on Zoom. And we've been going to this recovering couples program for about 15 years, but we finally decide in this long distance we're going to do the steps. And we get to the inventory step, and we do it, and that means you have to find a couples sponsor that you read the inventory to. So we find a couples sponsor and we get with them on Zoom, and guess who shows up to the meeting with the couples sponsor?
The therapist?
The little yeshiva boy. And the sponsor couple, just like all the therapists, take my partner's side. So I may commit Harry-Carry at any moment. And I don't, though. I come home from Canada, and we find another couple sponsor, and we start reading this list that is really about the grief of all the ways that we've hurt each other in like the last 30 years, and the good stuff too. But we finally get to the biggie, And it's a biggie. The day that I started grad school, my partner lost their shit and pinned me against the wall. And so they're reading this, and they start sobbing and saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then I start crying because I've waited 20 years for an apology of this depth, and we're holding hands, and it's totally moving, and the other couple is crying. And like, how lucky, you know, that kind of honesty and remorse and forgiveness. It's really beautiful and it's really healing. Until we get off Zoom, and then my partner turns to me and says, I don't think that we should say that I was abusive because I'm not abusive. And I'm so hurt, I can barely breathe. The next time we see the couple's sponsor, we tell them what happened, and they turn to me and they said, why can't you just let it go? It's just semantics. They apologized. I don't see why you would ever have to bring it up again. And I look out the windows that really need to be cleaned, and I say, because it still hurts. So we go to the therapist in the tent dress again, and my partner says, why can't Sky let it go? And the therapist looks at me, and this little breeze of compassion crosses her skinny little face. And she turns to my partner and she says, Sky can't let it go because you made a repair, and then you took it back. So you need a new repair. And every time that you make a new repair and then you break it, it gets harder for Sky. And you have so much shame that you can't hold the responsibility for having been abusive. In a real repair, you take responsibility and you keep taking responsibility. And my partner says, for how long? And the therapist says, for as long as it takes. Well, so we keep seeing, thank you, we keep seeing that therapist, and we do find a repair that sticks. It takes like 6 months or a year. And we find a new sponsor couple. They're Irish, they have beautiful accents. They also can hold space for both of us, like they kind of get me. And so we're slogging through this inventory. It takes so long that we end up in a pandemic. And we're sitting in our living room in this new apartment, looking out the windows onto very empty streets. And we say the last words of the inventory. And this is supposed to be like this big transformative moment. And the Irish couple's smiling and my partner's smiling. And I just feel heavy. I'm exhausted. It took too long. And it was too much work and too much forgiveness. And I look over at my little yeshiva boy, my heart, my partner, my best friend, my enemy, and I think, I'm out of room. And so, without saying a word or getting out of the chair, I leave. And it takes about a year for me to actually say the words that I'm done. But I do it. Many mornings after, as it turns out, because breaking my own heart into 1,000,000 pieces was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Thank you.